Okay.
Yep.
Cool. This is it then. Right. Got a good turnout, I think. There's about 11 odd people here. I've got two screens. So if I look down, I'm looking at everyone. I've got it sort of worked out there. And hopefully it will go through the slides. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and bypassed all the craziness that occurred just before Christmas Eve. So with this mentorship, this is going to be, I guess, a monthly webinar that we're going to produce various subjects, and hopefully we'll be able to post some interesting ones that would be beneficial for the students and practitioners. This one's probably more geared towards students, and I thought it might be really helpful because referencing and report writing is a real pain, and it's the core of a lot of the subjects that we've got. So it's to make it easier, I think, and to learn some of the trips, I'm mixing my words now, tricks and tips that I tend to use with report writing, because importing photos and resizing can actually get quite painful, and then adjusting and making it look professional, those sorts of things. I've sort of tinkered around a fair bit with it. So hopefully this will give you some insight into what I do, and it's not exactly what everyone else does. So it's my view, and you might gain some interesting bits out of it. Now, if everyone could go on mute, which everyone seems to be, which is good. Okay, I'll jump to the next slide. How's this? Okay, so what I'm going to cover today is really some basic principles. I've made some assumptions. I'll go through some introductions, the report structures, some idea around it. There were a few questions that came in, so hopefully it will address it. And I've seen a variation of reports across different areas. So this will bring it in, as well as what the college also provides, the tips and tricks that I mentioned, and then referencing. And then at the end, I'll really run through a demonstration and show you how quick you can create a report and to reference. So, jump in if you do have a few questions, jump in, but as long as, I want to break it down into half an hour of report writing, half an hour of referencing, and just show you what there is. There should be enough time for questions, and I've listed the questions that people have submitted towards the end, and we'll cover that off as well. And I've got some YouTube links that I quickly did, which will cover off anything that I've done here, but I might have to create a few more videos as well. So we'll keep going. Now, a bit of background about myself. My name's Senri Oiso. I've been doing building biology since 2019. So I'm fairly new to it, but there's a lot of experienced building biologists in this group and within the community as well. We've got Jeanette, we've got Kelly, we've got Nicole there as well. They're so experienced around what we do, and we're all sort of learning off each other anyway. So it's a good community to be a part of. Now, I've been doing IT for 20 odd years, so it varies from point of sales to warehouse systems, a lot of the virtualized environments that banks have as well, the Windows, Unix, Macintosh, what are the other ones, Solaris, storage products. There's a lot out there, but that's been a lot of what I've done over my career, and then this is a real pivot for me, becoming a building biologist, and something that I've really wanted to do outside of tech in a sense. Originally, I've trained as a scientist, so biochemistry and botany is one of the areas that I sort of majored in. And then lastly, more recently, I've done Feng Shui through the college as well. So pretty much finished all subjects within the college. I've just got to do building design and then it'll probably top it off. Now, with the introductions, the area that we're targeting, students and practitioners, the tips and tricks of a building biologist, the making the report look professional is critical. So, and I've seen variations of the reports, and I think one of the more common complaints that we tend to have as building biologists is that we've got a lot of report writing to do, and that can chew up your time. So you work for a day and you write a report for 4 days. That's doesn't work out that well, but you start to load that up with 3 or 4 assessments in a week, and then you're sort of writing reports for the next 3 weeks. So hopefully this will help in some ways, and there are other tools that I tend to use, things with designing for floor plans or writing floor plans on the fly when I'm on site, and or automated web forms, which Jeanette was referring to with Formatize as well, which I tend to use with questionnaires and checklists. And ultimately, this is about expanding your skill set. So hopefully you get something out of it, and I'll probably learn something from everyone here as well. It's all about continuous improvement. Now, with this presentation, it's going to be, I'll be jumping around with the operating system. So the more common one is going to be Apple, and then others may use Windows, but I primarily use a Mac for my report writing, but on site I use a Windows tablet for analyzing data logs, but an iPad with logging down data that I record on the day. So a lot of what you see in the screen captures may be a blend of Windows or Apple, but I'll mention it as I go through because the menu systems within Microsoft Word are a bit different as well. Now, other word processing applications that are out there that you may be using, OpenOffice and LibreOffice are more the open source Office products that are out there, Google Suites with the Docs program, and then you've got Apple Pages, which I'm starting to tinker around because the flexibility and the tailoring to an iPad is quite flexible, and I do a lot of my moisture mapping and EMF mapping on that as well. And it's a combination with EMF mapping, it's floor plans through photos and an Apple, not an Apple Pencil, but an Apple Stylus, which is capacitive. And then finally, Microsoft Office Word. So we're going to be focusing on Word primarily through this, and if there are students or practitioners out there that are using other products, then I'm happy to sort of hear what those are. Just a show of hands, who uses a Mac? Okay, and those that use Windows? Okay, so we've got close to half and half. Okay, it's probably good then. Now, with the Office products, it's not just Word. We've got Excel, PowerPoint. I'm using PowerPoint with this presentation here as well. And then we've got OneNote, I think it is, and Access databases. The assumptions with this presentation really is that you know how to create a document, save it and closing it, opening it, basic formatting around font sizes, changing fonts, and then creating tables. And I'll cover off drawing tables, and then inserting photos, which is probably some of the things that we tend to do as a building biologist as well. Now, report structures. I've seen a lot out there, and it varies. And I think once we graduate from a student to a practitioner, we get that experience with each of the assessments, and then our style changes, I believe, or mine does continuously. Every single report that I write tends to be customized because I'm always adjusting as I'm doing each assessment and then tweaking it here and there, moving things around and making it look a bit prettier in a way. But ultimately, it's the feedback that I get from the clients really of they provide that feedback through the follow-up that I do and the questions that I ask and what the questions they ask me as well, because there can be a misinterpretation or misunderstanding, and that's where things may fall apart with the reports. So, and ultimately we're doing it for the client, so that's the primary importance. Now, I've got three types of report structures here, and I'll go through each one, but I won't spend too much time. You can review it at a later date, because I'll share this out and it will be on the, I guess Nicole will put it on the events page or a link inside it. Yep, cool. So one option here, this is a basic report. So summary, introduction, background analysis being occupant background, building history, those sorts of things, a floor plan, and then measurements, and then ultimately a discussion. I should include suggested actions, and then conclusion glossary. I missed out the duty of care there, and then references appendix. So that's relatively basic. Now, another one could be, I've listed it here, much shorter. So a shorter summary. So clients or building biologists may create summary reports that are more simplified and just get to the crux of it. I don't necessarily do a lot of it in that manner because I think it misses the context or the background around it. So I tend to provide as much as I can without overloading the client. But it's always a fine juggle of how much you put in and how much you take out. And the final one, which probably most people are familiar with, is what the college has a general outline similar to this, which is the preamble, which covers most of the start of a report, the backgrounds around it. Disclaimers, I didn't put disclaimer options in the first two structures, but that should always be part of it. I've got a service agreement which has a disclaimer embedded within it, and that's been drafted up with a lawyer separately. But each practitioner is going to be really different in the way that they develop that disclaimer or that service agreement. Now, there's an executive summary in this particular one, which is really gets a point form summary of what the assessment produced or determined and actions associated with it, but you may not necessarily go into a lot of detail. It's probably 1 or 2 pages, and it just gives you, gives the client an idea of you need to do this, this, and this, get these licensed trades, and try and fix these areas as quick as you can in these priority order. And the methodology, measurement methods, that's there to be able to replicate that assessment, right? If another building biologist is hired as a second opinion, they could look at the report and then try and produce the same results or determine if there's anything missing. And the assessment results, this is where things can tend to blow up a bit with the site inspection, the observations that you have, the mappings that you produce, the EMF mappings or the mold mappings, moisture mappings. The NIOSH templates as well becomes a part of it. There's a lot of data that you might end up creating as a result. And to a client, they're going to look at it and go, okay, there's a lot of numbers here, but what does it really mean? And the measurements, it's what you measure on the day and whatever photos you take on the day to verify that measurement as well. Duty of care should be in pretty much all documents based on what you find outside of the assessment scope. And then the conclusion, and then ultimately glossary, references and appendix. I tend to put moisture mappings and some of the raw data in the appendix as a reference, but others might embed it directly in the assessment results and the measurements. Any questions there? Nope. Okay, so key points with that, really, the college has the basic template structure, and I think that's provided with mold and EMFs. My thought process around this is really keep it simple for the clients, ensure the client focuses on the key areas. What do they need to do first, and then you can refer them into the detailed area of the report. Now, the fun part, the tips and tricks within Word that I tend to use, right? And these are just top level ones that I use on a constant basis. And I think the demonstration will probably give you more of an idea of how it's used and why I use it. And it doesn't, I haven't gone into too much detail because I want to talk around it and then show you the outcome of it. Styles, predefined styles, table of contents, always useful, especially if you're doing a litigation or a court case issue that goes to court. They've got to be able to identify the page numbers, location of the paragraph that they're interested in. Those sorts of things are quite critical. And then, you know, potentially line numbers for each of the page. Headers and footers, I'll show you what I tend to use. Typically, it's more just to put titles for each of the page and page numbers to identify address, type of assessment, and then, you know, your logo or your company name. Cover page is always important. And then photo formatting and resizing. This is where it can be problematic in a report. So I'll delve into it a bit more, but you know, having 1,000 photos in there will blow out your file size, and then you won't be able to email it to your client and you've got to print it out and mail it. Section break tips, great for floor plans and printing to PDF, which I don't have a slide on, but I'll talk around that. Now, predefined styles within Word. So this is a Word in the Apple MacBook. Now, a lot of it, these are predefined, so it's just a matter of knowing where they are and selecting, highlighting and selecting what you need to use. And it becomes more important when you start to jump around the document. And when you're editing and jumping around the document, it allows you to quickly move to a location or a section that you need without having to scroll up and down constantly. So we've got the top area there in the ribbon where you can actually change the font styles to different areas. The style pane, which shows you the complete list, and there's a lot there. And some documents, and if you go to a company that uses their own predefined templates, these styles will change. So it's a matter of knowing that the default one that comes with Microsoft Word it's perfect. I don't adjust it. I may have put some own formatting like bold and italics to certain things, but for the majority of the report, it's left to the default settings. So we've got the normal setting, titles, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and heading 4. So we saw in the previous reporting structures, the preamble might be a heading 1, and then we might have the introduction and the background analysis as a heading 2. Headers and footers. So basically it's just the top section of the margin area of the document where you would place the header and the footer. And with that, within the Apple Word, it's a matter of going to the insert ribbon, which is up here, and then going to the header icon, I guess, to select it. And you've got a variety of options that you can select. I tend to use this middle one, which is the blank 3 columns, and the left side I would put in my company details. The middle area would be EMF, mold, whatever type of assessments that I'm doing. And then the top right would be the address of the assessment site. Now with the footer, I only use it for page numbers. I think having too much around the headers or footers is potentially going to clutter the view of the report. So I tend to simplify it and just keep the page number, and it could be a selection of either in the middle of the document or the bottom right. Now, once you do the changes, it's a matter of just closing the header footer functions within the area, and you'll end up having a footer like this, which might be fairly simplistic but it's a matter of preference and personal preference around the styles that you create. Table of contents. So we saw the predefined styles earlier with the heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. That gets used when you generate a table of contents. So you don't have to manually create your own table of contents. As long as you use the predefined styles, then you can generate a table of contents at the start of the document. And it becomes really useful when you start to leverage that. Any adjustments that you make and any headings that you use with that style, all you have to do is just refresh that table and it will populate the details with the page numbers, and it keeps it simple. And you can layer it. You can show how many headings you want to list in the table of contents, and it could just be 1 or 2 headings, or you could have it 4 layers down and provide a really detailed table of contents. Now, this output that you can see here is from a Windows Word operating system, Microsoft Word. So what it comes down to, so jumping on to the next bit around the cover page or the title. Two different things completely. The cover page is the cover page. So it's a separate page on its own, and you've got different styles that you can select from, which will make it quite useful. And there's not a lot of selection, but pick a few and then you can adjust it as you need it. The title is more or less it might more or less be used for, say, a summary report where you don't have a cover page, right? But personal preference in the end, or the report style, whether it's a summary report or a comprehensive report. Section breaks. One of my favorite things. When I found this out, I fell in love with it because it just made things a lot simpler, especially when you want to tweak the orientation of the page within a document without affecting all the document pages. So what's it used for? Really, section breaks are really, I look at it as a chapter within a document, right? Like you're reading a book and it's a new chapter. That's what it is to me. And it's ideally, I mainly use it to rotate documents in a way that allows me to put in things like moisture mappings or floor plans where I need that landscape mode rather than a portrait mode. So within Word, the Apple Word system, it's a matter of going to Insert, and it's going to be similar to the Windows environment. Insert, go to the break, and then section break to a new page, or you can section break as a continuous part of the document, but it just hides that break within that page. Now, once you do that, what it would do is allow you to rotate documents into landscape mode. So you can see 3 pages there, but that's ultimately 3 sections because I've section braked from the first page to the second page and then section braked to create the 3rd page, right? And going back to that section break to a new page allows me to create a new page each time I do that. And then it's a matter of selecting that. What I've done there is really select the middle page, page number 2, and then gone into orientation and rotated that. So ultimately, I can put in diagrams in a landscape mode and it's not going to affect the rest of the document. And you can add predefined style headings in there as well to indicate that it's a floor plan, and continue on with the next stage, whether it's a measurements, assessment and results section. So that's what I mainly use it for, really. Now, a quick touch on tables, and I'll dive into some more details with the demonstration because it'll add a bit more context once I do that. So I tend to use a lot of tables for photos, right? Because I can control the way the photo comes out, and I can control how many photos I want to fit on a page. Obviously, it's going to be reduced in size depending on how many rows and columns that I create, but you'll see an example a bit further on. So this is within a Word Windows version of creating a table. And it's pretty straightforward. Click on the icon, select the size, and then create the output. Now, I tend to like the design formats that you have. So I always select a color style that I like. Typically it's blue, but it varies depending on the nature of the document, whether it's EMF or mold. I tend to use different colors in those instances. So we've got the options there to go to Design tab after you've created the table, and then you select the color options, and then you can select the layout. Now, inserting an image. I've only covered one portion of it, but I'll start to merge that in a bit later with the demonstration. So with the Windows version, you can select the icon, insert picture, or you can search with the online pictures option. It will go out and search. So you could, I think it searches Unsplash and a few of the other royalty-free photos that are out there. But you may end up having photos that's on your computer, and it's a matter of just inserting it, selecting the format. Now, one of the tips here that I tend to use is once I start adding photos as I'm creating the document, I will adjust the size, and I will continuously adjust the size so that the Word document itself doesn't blow out to be 30, 40, 50 megs in size, because then you won't be able to email it to your client. So always untick that option there with the apply only to this picture, because you want to apply it to the whole document. Any photo that is added within the document, you want to apply it, and you want to reduce the resolution of that photo to a reasonable quality that they can primarily print onto a hard copy. Some clients are really sensitive, so they'll just print it out once they receive the report. But I've got other EMF clients that are that sensitive that I end up printing it out for them and then delivering it to them. So, but the print option there with the quality is sufficient. If you know that the client's only going to read it on an iPad or a computer, then I might drop it down to a web option. And then I've only ever used the email quality option once because I had too many photos in it. So that's where it can get a bit tricky. So it's a bit of trial and error, but ultimately if you stick to these options, I think it'll be sufficient enough that the client will be able to read the document with enough quality. Okay, so I'll jump into the demonstration. If does anyone have any questions at this point?
Senri, can I make
Hang on. Okay, yep.
Oh, thanks. When you were talking about different titles, headers, etc., and how that can help you with navigation, are you going to go into the navigation pane aspect?
Yep.
Because I've personally found that extremely useful.
That's what I use.
Doing my reports.
Yep, the navigation pane is what I tend to use all the time. So let me just get a copy of one of the structures. Okay, and I'll just open up Word. So just bear with me and I'll share that again. Stream 2. Okay, can you see that? the Word document.
Yeah, we can see it, Henry.
Okay. All right, so what I'll do is I'll just paste that structure that I've got now. Okay, so we'll quickly go through. What I tend to do is really just cut and paste the structure that I've got and start to apply the styles. So you'll see here, I'll just quickly go through. I tend to use, I don't tend to drop down the style pane, but just use whatever is up there. For adverse effects, so heading 2 there. Exec summary would be heading 1. Methodology, heading 1. And that would be heading 2, heading 1. These will be heading 2. And then the rest would be heading 1. Okay. So that's the structure. And what Helen was referring to is the view pane and the navigation option. So once you do the styles, you've got the option here to really have a table of contents in the navigation pane that you can jump around within the document. So ultimately, we may have the appendix on different pages that makes it a bit more difficult. So what I tend to do is separate pages for each of the sections. Okay. And we've got the basic layout of a report. Now we covered the cover page, right? So I would, at this point, create a new page, table of contents. There's that page, but from here, within the view option, insert cover page. So I'm on an Apple Word version here. So with the cover page, you'll get a variety of styles. Now, I tend to like this particular one. And it's a matter of, I tend to put 2021. It's frozen on me, sorry. What is it doing? Sorry, just bear with me. It's frozen. What is it doing? No, sorry, Word. I think Word's crashed. So I'm going to have to restart that again. Apologies. Okay, can you see Word now? Okay.
Yeah, what I can see, Senri, is, oh, yeah, we can see it now. It's a blank page.
Yep. Perfect. Sorry, it's crashed on me, so hopefully it won't do it again. I'll just quickly go through. So I've actually got a YouTube video which covers a lot of this, creating a report in 10 minutes, really. So you don't have to remember everything. Most of it's going to be there, and then it's a matter of just playing around and becoming comfortable with it. So I'll just create the cover page. I might pick a different one just to be on the safe side. Okay, so this is an example. So obviously tweak it. What I tend to do, obviously, with, oh, there we go. It's done it again. Sorry, it's crashed again. I don't think it likes the cover page for some reason. And it's probably going to crash. Yeah, it's crashed again. Murphy's Law, always things break at the worst possible moment. So I'll just see if I can quickly force quit. Just restarting it now, hopefully. That should be coming back up now.
Yeah, it is.
There's got to be something wrong with that. I think it's the import. Okay, so I won't complicate it. I'll just keep it simple. I won't do the cover page. Table of contents, section break with a preamble. Might have a new page with okay, so I've just created a few headings. What I'll do here is get the navigation pane up and so floor plan. So what I'll cover quickly is we've got the preamble, the headings 1 and 2 are installed, right? Now, ignoring the cover page, it's crashing the word. What I'll do now is with the headings, you can see here on the left-hand side, we've got the different types of headings. Now, it's a matter of inserting the table of contents. Now, so under Word in Apple, it's a matter of going index and tables, which will pop up another screen. And then you've got table of contents listed there. And I tend to go for the formal, 2 layers down, 2 levels, and hitting OK. So the style of that table of contents is the preview here that you can see on the right-hand side. So once I click OK, it will basically draw upon those headings, the predefined styles, and create the table of contents for you. Now I could go through and list observations here, put another as a heading 2, jump back up to the table of contents. It's not going to be listed here. So it's a matter of just updating the field because you've already created the table of contents, and just update the entire table and you'll get the observations listed there.
Excuse me, Henry.
Yep.
I think we've frozen. Have you still got the temp index and tables little icon up that you were selecting?
Yeah, no, I've moved around a bit. Maybe
Yeah.
it's slow to catch up. Let me just stop the sharing and reshare it again. Apologies for that. Okay, it's just sharing now. Is that up?
Not yet. It's saying that you've started to share your screen, but it's just not sharing at the moment.
Okay. I'll stop it again. Hang on. What if Word document? Is that any better?
No, it's still stuck on, it says that you've started your screen sharing, but it's just not sharing your screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's not good.
No. No.
Okay. Just trying to think what the options are. What I might do is don't think it's going to work.
Smaller headings underneath.
Okay, so I'm not sure where it dropped off, but with any changes within the Word document, so if you create new headings, you can easily update the table of contents and right-click on the table of contents and then update the entire field. And that'll refresh the table of contents. Now, earlier I was mentioning with the headers and footers, it's a matter of just tend to go view, headers and footers. So I would always add this option if it comes through. Okay. Pretty straightforward with the header, and then the footer is something that I just typically have a page number at the end. So I would use a simple one down here, and then you end up closing it. So as you go through creating the document, it's going to be there constantly, but for me, it's more of a reference point for the document. So if I'm writing multiple documents, I don't want to be mixing things up, writing the wrong things in the wrong document. That's primarily my purpose of having the headers and footers as a guide. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned with the documents, with all my documents that I tend to produce, I tend to put a watermark in the background, and primarily just a company logo that's just there transparently as a distinction, I guess, within the document. So it's always there, and I have a basic one that I embed. So you'll tend to see that within the background. So obviously, there's been instances where other unrelated professions have copied documents, right? So watermarking is just a way for me to have a stamp of my logo on there, so I know that it's mine, or other people will know that it's mine. Now, floor plan and section breaks, which I covered earlier. So we've got, this is where it becomes a bit interesting. I would do a insert section break and continuous. So by continuous, it just carries over the, actually no, next page is the critical one, but we need to make the page numbers continuous. So a section break next page puts that floor plan page onto a separate new page, right? And from there, it's a matter of changing the layout to landscape and having a new section, because that's going to carry across to the rest of the documents, because effectively I created 2 sections. But you want the subsequent page to be another section break to create that distinction, and then I would modify that into a portrait. So you can see here now that we've got portrait mode, landscape mode, and then portrait mode again. So that's a quick and easy one. And with floor plans, what I tend to do is get it from the website, or if they've got one available, scan it in, and I would create a, depends on the purpose of it, but I would create a table and just have a border on each side. Okay, and then I would insert a photo, which would be of a floor plan that I could use. So I'll just quickly just use the ASBB logo. And then just hide the borders that's around the document itself. So you could center it. But that's the key section break, right? Now, the point here, hopefully the page numbers, we've got page 2 from the previous section going into page 3, and then occasionally it will reset the page numbers. So when that occurs, it's really going into the footers and just adjusting the page numbers to continue on from the previous page. So it's a matter of selecting this option within the document and then updating it. The other options, now tables, I'll just jump to observations. So what I tend to do with photographic evidence that we generate, I use a lot of tables. So I would do 2 columns, multiple rows, and adjust it to size. Now the critical thing here is you go into the design of the table and set the width of that column to whatever size you want, because the problem that you'll have with photos is that as you add it in, depending on how large that photo is going to be, it will cause a lot of problems. And you sort of want consistency with the photos every single time that you use it. So I haven't done anything here, and you're going to have to resize this and adjust it, make it look pretty. It's cumbersome, right? So a tip with this area is highlighting the whole table, going into the table design, table layout, and then under auto fit is setting the fixed column width. As soon as you do that, it makes it much more consistent with the photos. So I could do the same photo again. Now, obviously it's going to be a lot smaller, but you would have enough detail there to be able to illustrate and say, phone tower on the eastern side, measuring 10 microwatts per meter squared. You could do, and it becomes much easier to control. So I'll add a few more. So it'll keep it to that consistent size all the way through. Now, occasionally what I would do is if there's two photos of the same location but different readings for some reason, or there's another issue, I may end up splitting that particular row into two columns. And placing it on the other side. So play around with the format and put some notes around it. So that's typically what I do with photos. Now, the resizing again, under the picture format, selecting the compressed picture option, and all photos, it's on high fidelity now, but basically go down to print or on screen functions and then OK that, and that will apply it to all the photos within the document. And it just reduces the size of the Word document quite significantly. So that's the use of tables and photos together to make it a lot simpler. Now with the floor plan, I tend to do something similar. I'll just show up the borders again. So just imagine that's a floor plan around, and what I might do is basically add photos around the floor plan and put arrows to it or details around it. So I might have so if you could just imagine the floor plan with photos of living rooms, bathrooms, kitchen, etc., then observing and knowing what that floor plan layout was and what was in that location becomes a lot simpler. And I've got another demonstration of that a bit later. That's where I tend to use tables with pictures together to make it far easier to illustrate. So that's that with Word primarily. I think I've covered all the feature sets that I had mentioned. Any questions before I move on to referencing? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll share another screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, so referencing. There's a number of tools or different ways of doing referencing. Has everyone done research methods? No? But I guess you're in the middle of doing reports, so you're having to do referencing, right? Do you do a lot of manual referencing, so cut and pasting, moving things around? No? Okay.
I use Mendeley.
Okay, good. That's what I'm going to cover. That's primarily what I use. But before I actually got into that, I was using the Harvard referencing generator, which is a free tool on the web. Pretty straightforward. You've got all the options of the types of sites that you want to do. So whether it's a newspaper article, journal article, etc. But it's still pretty manual. You need to add the details of the author, the title, and they have improved it since I last used it, when they've got your own section where it collates all the references that you have added. But it's still a method of cut and pasting and then ordering it in alphabetical order. So it gets a bit tricky. Time consuming is where it's a real pain. So I spent probably, I think my mold report was probably one of the more problematic ones where I did things manually with this method. I won't go into the demonstration. The areas that I researched with referencing, I came down to 3 tools. EndNote was the one that a lot of the researchers tend to use. The universities, the labs, they all use EndNote. But it's a paid app, right? It is fairly costly. I think $300–400 for a student, and then $600–700 onwards for a company or an organization. And there wasn't much flexibility. I think they've got an app as well on the iPhone or the iPad. Zotero was another one that I came across, open sourced, free, but I think in the early infancy it was pretty clunky. So I didn't really latch onto it. And then Mendeley sort of popped up along the journey, which is where it became really useful. And the functionality, the feature sets, the ability to really use multiple platforms, iPhone, iPad, desktops, it just made things simpler, and it's got the plugins for it. And they've got a new plugin now, the Cite plugin, that allows you to reference within Word on an iPad. So portability becomes much better if you were to create reports on the go and you need that referencing option. So this is where I think it plays a big part. It's free, and there's a lot of collaborators out there. The fact that you can create your own little group and invite the people across into it and share the research articles that you have makes it far simpler. All right, so I think that collaboration aspect was where I think it caught on for me, and it made it a lot simple. So with the research options, so this is a screenshot from my desktop. There's a lot of ways to use it. Who's used Mendeley? Helen, you were one. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone use anything other than Mendeley? No? Okay. All right. So Mendeley's key. I've dumped a lot of stuff. You can see a lot of details in there. It's pretty straightforward. I think once you get the hang of it and you know what you're looking for or what you're doing, it's a really powerful tool. They've got a plugin for installing into Word, which is what I primarily use it. Though on I tend to find the Apple version of the Word plugin is a bit unstable compared to the Windows version. So not sure if people have come across that, but everything else works quite well. Now, within Word, it's a matter of once you install the plugin, you've got the reference option in there, and you set the Harvard style referencing method. I tend to use I think that's the right one. I think there were a few other new features in there, but gives you all these options that you can see there on the screen. Haven't used the Cite, the one above, the current one that's highlighted, but the deprecated one with the format one is the key one that I tend to use. And then it's a matter of just clicking on the Insert Citation button, typing in your reference, and that as long as you have the article in mind within your desktop or your profile, you can pull it up within the Word plugin. So,
can I ask a question, Henry?
Yeah.
So I've never used Mendeley. So do you go onto Mendeley, research, mold, whatever, select your articles in Mendeley and then import it into Word? Is that what you're doing?
No, so it's sort of a two-step process where you need to find the articles, or if you've got an article, say through the college, they give you a bunch of articles, you would input those articles into Mendeley.
So you go into Mendeley, import them from PubMed or wherever you found them?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Once you do that, then you can use it into Word.
So you have to sort of, Mendeley kind of becomes like your encyclopedia, like you save everything there first.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, got you. So there's a memory feed, like you must save stuff under your profile. Is that right?
Yeah, you've got to create a sign-in profile and then it'll start to store it.
Got you. Thank you. I was just trying to get my head around where you got these from, so that makes sense. You've already saved them in Mendeley first.
Correct, yeah.
I got you. Thank you.
And once you do the insert with a particular article, so I've got an example there, it'll show up as a highlighted site reference. And that's going to be the basis of inserting as a reference list towards the end of your document. So it becomes really useful. So quick and simple, what you saw there, you click on you create a new page, put the heading as references, and then you hit the insert bibliography, and whatever citation that you've done within the document, it will automatically embed that directly in that section. So I'll run through some example demonstrations a bit later, but the fact that it puts it alphabetically, it pulls it directly from your profile in Mendeley desktop or in the cloud, and you might, I tend to do a few touch-up formatting to just make it look prettier and readable rather than a complete list of jumbles. So I'll jump directly into that now. Zotero.org. I've got links to it all in the document, and then we've got Mendeley. Now, with Mendeley, ultimately, you need to create a free account and then download the reference manager. So if you click on the reference manager, it will automatically detect your operating system and give you the right solution to download. But you can see here we've got desktop for Windows, desktop for Linux, and then it's selected the Mac OS version listed here. Now with the plugin, has that shown up now? Okay, cool. Right, so this is the plugin that the desktop application that's installed on my Mac that you're seeing. So it's got all my reference articles that I've listed here. And the idea here really, I've structured it in a way of different topics. Might be a bit small for you, but I've got things like HBA, HARP, Ericsson 5G. It varies, right? There's a lot there. I think I've got over probably 2,500 odd documents listed here. Yeah, just over 2,500. But it is quite cumbersome. Now, the quick and easy within Mendeley, you can actually do literature searches. So say I was to look for vitamin D, it'll search through its own catalog of what people have referenced and provide you a list. And where, I've got a tick here, I've already got a copy of it in my profile, and you can actually go through and read through any of the documents. Now it won't necessarily, you can see here URL is blank on the right hand side where my mouse cursor is. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's a matter of it hasn't been registered properly. So you can always go to the document index here. So the DOI, click on the search button and it will give you the URL to the page. And it's just a matter of clicking on it and it'll open it up. So things that you do find, you might want to go directly to the actual article, read it, and then if you decide that you like it, you can import it and save the reference. Now, once you save the reference that you saw there, I just clicked on the top right, it'll go into your recently added section. And from here, you would need to relocate it to the folder structure that you've got. So I think this is daylight, so I typically add this under my light section here and it will automatically be added. So this is all my light references around health and light, vitamin D, red light, infrared lights. The other options that you could do is if you've got a PDF document, and I think the college may give you a couple of PDF documents, you can manually add that into Mendeley and it will suck out the details automatically for you. So if I go down to 10. So I've just selected an article. I haven't tried this, but we'll see how it imports it. So I've already got a reference already listed here. So it's, has it added? No, it's just added that. So that PDF document was a journal article that automatically looked up the authors, the journal, got all the details, the abstract, and added it into my list. So now I can just sort of add that into my 5G document section, and that's easy as pie for adding PDF documents that you've already found and saved, right? So there's a lot out there that I think people tend to save in their local hard drives. Now, with the install, I guess, with the plugins, if you're installing Mendeley for the first time and onto Word, under Tools, you've got the Web Importer, which is the plugin for the tool itself. And I've got a YouTube video to explain it a bit. And then the Word plugin here. Now, I've already got it installed, so it's asking me to uninstall it. But you do have to have Word, have to close Word and then install the plugin and reopen it. And you've got it in there to be able to use. So pretty straightforward. I'll see if I can, I'm not sure if I shared my Safari. Do you see that within, should say clinical nutrition?
Yep.
Okay. So this is another vitamin D article. With the plugin, so in the past, Mendeley used to be, they did have plugins for Safari, but they've discontinued that, and they only do it for Edge and Chrome, Firefox. But I've already had the plugin installed, so it hasn't broken that functionality for me. But if you do find an article such as this on the web, you're browsing it, and you've got the plugin installed, I've got a Save to Mendeley button here. So if I click that, I'll get the reference, the option to import it into my document. And on the right-hand side, it'll ask me to log in to the web importer. It's going to work. So once it installs, I mean, once you sign in, and I've blocked it. Okay, no, it's not working. The option here with the web importer, it allows you, as you're on the page, allow you to install it properly and import it into the cloud. And it's a matter of going back to your Mendeley desktop, and you need to draw that down onto your desktop. So it's not going to do it here, I think. So I've pretty much synced it, but it will sync it in, and then that's when you can start to import it into your Word document. Now, let's see if I can add, okay, we got more Word document. So within Word, I'll just do some examples here. Within references, to import a citation, I guess, is clicking on the references, the insert edit citation. It'll open up a new dialog box eventually. Oh dear. Oh, because I haven't shared it. Sorry. Just bear with me. Can you see that? I've just had to change the sharing option to a desktop. Do you see the Word document?
Yeah, I see a document. It has glossary up the top. Then it has RF causes cancer. I think it's just uploaded now.
Yep. Okay, great. So I've just had to change it because it's not going to show the dialog box, and hopefully this will now. If This is not working. Of all the days. Oh my God. I've never had so many problems.
You handled it well.
It's the reason why I use Mac. It just works, but today it's not. Come on, come on, come on. What is going on?
Senri, do you have to have, when you're doing that, do you have to have Mendeley open in your browser at the same time?
You do need to have the desktop open, yes.
You have to have both, so both softwares open, the browser of Mendeley, and then you're importing it.
You won't need the browser to be opened because it will automatically upload it to the cloud, the Mendeley cloud, so onto their servers.
So you just got to put the plugin into Word for Word to talk to Mendeley.
Yeah, it'll talk to the desktop tool.
Right. Okay, got you. So you need to have registered Mendeley and download the desktop tool in order for Word. Can you do this in Pages on a Mac?
I haven't found, it doesn't work on Macs.
Okay.
Yeah, under Pages, so that's the reason why I use Word.
Does it work in Google Docs?
I think you can use a citation plugin for it, but I haven't tested it.
All right, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
That's right. This is where it gets a bit clunky, so that's why Word is the ideal word processing application to use. I've just changed. It might be a bit small for you, so apologies for this, but I need the different screens open. I'll see if this works again. Okay, so you should see the little citation editor that's popped up now. Okay, so within here, whatever you've got within your desktop, should pop up within here. So if I go causes of cancer, it will find whatever search string that you've got within here. I'm looking for a particular one that, so this is the one. So Priyanka's created. You just have to select the right article that you're after, right? So you need to know what the article is, who the author is. So you can put in a bunch of titles, authors, look for the particular one that you're after, and then add that to your list. And that will, once you click OK, it'll drag the details and add that citation into Word. Now, is that screen large enough? Can you see that? Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's added Holick, Michael Holick, Priyanka Bandara, and David Carpenter's reference. So I'll add a few more. So we could do mold causes, health issues, and you could manually put in things like mold manual. So I've got a little reference to the ACES manual, and then you might have stack here. How many references? Stacky, clutter, sporium. I'm just randomly adding a few references just to give you an indication of, once we do the bibliography, how it looks like. Okay, so as you're writing the document, you add the citations, and you don't have to worry about creating the reference list until the end. So I've got here a bunch of citations now from different articles. Once you complete it, and it doesn't have to be at the end, you can continue to edit and add citations as you go. But with your references, you've got your reference section here. It's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is go to the section where you want it to start, and you hit under the reference section, insert bibliography, and you have to have that Harvard reference style configured. Click on that, and it'll go back to the desktop tool, pull everything down, and add the references in alphabetical order. So it does take a bit of time. I've added a fair few there, so it might take a few seconds. Or not. Okay, there we go. So that's just listed all the references from just those 2 sentences and whatever articles I've selected. Now, this on its own, it's a bit hard to read, right? So if people were to read it, I tend to highlight this. And then in the ruler section here, you've got 2 little arrows. I drag that out, it just adds an indentation. And then the top arrow that's pointing down, click on that, and it's the first line indent, and I drag that back to the start. And that just gives you a much nicer view, alphabetically, all the authors of those articles. So you can individually go through each one and read it separately. So that's referencing, really. It's pretty straightforward. The tool itself, you know, as I'm browsing the web on the iPad, iPhone, I basically import. I read it. If I like it, I import it. And I start to collect a list, you know, significant one here. So there's a fair few. I've got a variety of topics. And as I did each of the subjects, I just created a new page. Like I've got children's health here, Chinese astrology, circadian rhythms, dental and dentistry. And I've even got, I think, Priya's, what is it, presentation from last year from the ASBB. I just went out and looked for all the references that she had listed and captured it here as well. So yeah, you start to create a significant list, but then, you know, you can't remember it all. Some of the benefits here really is as you go through, you've got a PDF file in Mendeley, you can double click on that. If it's a PDF, it'll open up that PDF, and then you can start to highlight certain sections of that. Right, you can add notes. Okay, and you could go through and read through your notes as you've read that article. So you might mention, hey, you know, this is relevant for the discussion area of the report. You know, this particular article identifies that it causes cancer. So as you're writing the article, you can list it up. Another way that you could really leverage this is use tags within Mendeley and have RFEMR, semicolon, and cancer. And that's your sort of keywords within Mendeley that you can search, that you know what to look for. When you can't remember the article or the author, you go through and list, identify it by tags. Okay. The other option with Mendeley, because it's like a collaborative space, you do need to be careful that you don't necessarily post things that gets cataloged. So especially website that you're referencing, right? It's not a scientific journal article. And the key thing here would be within the detail profile of each article, down the bottom, there's unpublished work. So you can exclude it from the Mendeley web catalog, right? So it doesn't get listed, and that's probably good practice to do. So I've got things like the, what's this one? So this would be a web article, no, it's a journal article. Certain ones you may just wish to disable it, just untick that unpublished work, because there are researchers that will publish their own articles into Mendeley. So that's what I tend to do. If it's unpublished work, tick it and it doesn't get catalogued. Any questions around this? No? Okay. All right. Sorry, I know it's taken a bit of time. There is a few more. I'll cover the submitted questions. Does everyone see that now?
Yep.
Okay. So these are questions that I've received in no particular order. So I'll just go through good examples of reports. The views around images and reports, I think I've covered. Experiences with clients and how they respond best, and then audits or assessments. So I've just made some points around here. Now, good reports. I think it all depends on the client, and you want the client to understand, right? And you can sort of see on the right here with the indoor air measurements that I've done for one particular client. That's a lot of readings, right? And they're not going to read through that. They want a summary of what's happened, why it's happening, what they can do about it. And the report lengths that I've seen of different building biologists, it ranges from 5 to 60 pages. So it all varies. The key thing is it takes a lot of time to write reports. So, you know, the less time you spend writing reports, the better it's going to be ultimately in the real world anyway. But there are certain instances where if you go into court, a litigation issue, then you want a proper report structure, and that's where it sort of counts, and you want the details and the referencing. But keep it really simple for the clients. This is just an example, but it could be with photos as well, which I'll show in the next slide. Any questions on that? Any other thoughts? Oh, sorry. Okay. So
sorry, Senri.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your feedback as far as from clients as far as reports? You know, as far as I guess ultimately we want to change their lives.
Correct, yeah. And a lot of my clients tend like the long reports. The summary reports are something that I don't know, maybe it's harder for me to do, but I'm very bit OCD around how I do things, so how I measure, how I research. So I deep dive and down the rabbit hole a fair bit. So that's my downside. But the clients tend to like it. I always do a quick summary at the start saying, hey, these are your problems, fix these, fix these, fix these. And if you want more details of what exactly you need to do, then jump into the suggested actions area, right? I tend to say suggested actions instead of recommendations, and then professional opinions as well. So it all varies, but a lot of the time it's been good feedback for me. I haven't had any complaints. There's probably only one that said it was too long, and they had to spend a lot of time reading through it. I've had anecdotally, I've heard people say if it's too long, they don't read it, they don't implement the changes, which is what you don't want, right? So it's a bit of trial and error, really, of engaging from the client, because they could be more visual, they may be more auditory in their learning. And some people, I've got clients that follow me around doing the assessments and writing things down as I'm saying it. So, and then they're actioning things before they even get the report. So I guess it's managing the client's expectations, managing them on site on the day of the assessment, and then also I tend to follow up and check on them and say, hey, have you had a look at the report? Are there any questions? Can I go through them with you and explain it? And as long as they understand it, then, you know, I've had fairly good success rates where they would start to implement a lot of the things that are within their control, right? And then they're waiting for licensed trades to come on site and do the other changes. Okay. Images with reports. So I've done some example demonstrations on here. On the right-hand side is an actual example from one of my clients in Canberra. So the floor plan there, I drew that on the day when I'm there. So it's fairly detailed and I've touched it up as I've come back home. But ultimately, this is like a visual of showing them where the hotspots are and some of the measurements that I've identified on the day, like the peak measurements that are problematic, right? So it's a different way of showing it. The red line here that you can see down the bottom of the floor plan is a power distribution line, and then there was another dotted line where the power was just basically going overhead over the house, and that was causing a magnetic hotspot pretty much throughout the whole house here on the bottom right. So, but RF was also problematic in certain locations. But yeah, you can see here I've literally crammed a lot of photos around that floor plan on a single page. So I guess one page to see it all and then determine what the problem is. But the more photos that you have, the larger that file size is going to be, and then it's going to be a problem trying to send that to the client. So reducing that file size is critical. And you keeping it at the print quality or the email on-screen quality is enough to get the gist. And I know some building biologists, I know Jeanette, you showed me this trick where you take the photo and then you edit that photo with the reading in big letters. I think that's genius in that way, because that's captures it there and then, and you don't have to worry about it. You can refer back and paste that into your photo into your report as well. So different ways of doing it. And I could do another webinar of doing floor plans and moisture mapping on iPads. Right, I do it on the fly. I take a photo and then I moisture map on that photo.
Excuse me, Senri.
Mm-hmm.
With that, you said you did that floor plan while you were there. What software did you use?
It was a home design 3D software on the iPad. So, but it's all guesswork in terms of, it's not to scale. I don't measure anything. I just look at it and go guesstimate the size and draw out the plan. And then I'll come back home and add the little furnitures with another software on the Mac. So it just makes it a bit more professional, especially if they can't provide a floor plan. The preference is I always ask for a floor plan during the quoting mechanisms when they call up, or in the questionnaire, I'll ask if they've got a floor plan and if they could send it to me before the assessment. So yeah, when I'm there, I'm probably spending 10, 15 minutes quickly to draw a floor plan, and then I've got something that I could map onto. But the point here with clients may be visual learners, which is the reason why I add photos. Auditory, on the day, just talking to them and showing them the issues on site would be kinesthetic, right? So just sort of, I guess, gauging the client and seeing how they learn might help you with the assessment. So yeah, so how do clients respond best? Depends on the client, as I said. To me, Jeanette, I'm not sure. How do you find clients respond in different ways?
Yeah, look, most of my clients like the reports, and they like to have something that's a blueprint for them to follow. So I sort of try and set it out. I use photos, and I draw on the photos, and that way, rather than describing where something is, it's quite visual. So yeah, no, I get good response from clients.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But my reports are sort of long as well. Because the photos make them long.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know, how was it? Some of the litigation reports, some people may just have the report, so it's all text, and then they'll have a separate document with all the photos, and then they'll caption the photos and reference it in the main report. So they'll say, refer to the image report, figure A, B, and C, to illustrate EMF readings for the meter box, for example. So yeah, that's another way of doing it, but that's more litigation where you want to separate the details out and just focus on the text, and have a separate document focused on the images. So that's one way of doing it, but combining is always going to make it really large, and that's one of the struggles that I had. But in terms of clients, I guess you want the clients to action it, and as Jeanette said, you want it clearly laid out for them to follow through. So what's the priority? Fix the moisture issue, or move the bed away from that wall where it's got a magnetic reading, and then call in the licensed trades afterwards, or get them to sleep in a different room temporarily. I've got a client in Orange that she's got significant Wi-Fi in her bedroom, and she can't do anything about it, so she's sleeping in the spare bedroom. But the problem there is that long term it's not going to be feasible for her, but it's ultimately how she can tackle the other actions to get to that point where she can move back in. Right, so I check up on her once in a while, but yeah, she needs that main bedroom because it's got the toilet ensuite attached, right? And walking in the middle of the night is a hazard for her. So yeah, trying to mitigate that, but help her recover as best as she can.
Senri?
Yep.
Do you mark on your floor plan the location of, so in Adelaide, we get a lot of people with what's called Wi-Fi extenders on their roof.
Mm-hmm.
They look like an antenna with like a dish.
Okay.
Do you mark where, and like if you get a reading, like if you're doing a reading in a room and you're getting a really high reading from a solar panel or because I've got this happened a few times to me so far, from the ceiling, do you mark that on your floor plan, anything you're getting through the roof?
Yeah, so I would do a hotspot reading. So what I've done here with the illustration, you've got little circles here in red. If it was RF, I may use a different color to show that there's an RF hotspot. But RF penetrates everywhere, right? But in terms of like a Wi-Fi extender or an antenna on the building, yeah.
Mark location on the floor plan, do you? You just mark the readings that you're getting in that room.
Yeah, I if I locate something with that through the observations and I have a photo of that, I won't necessarily list it as a hotspot, but I may have another floor plan that illustrates, hey, this is the living room, this is the outdoors, this is the meter box outside, and I'll just point, like I'll have like an arrow here, as you can see, pointing to the location where there is that antenna or a meter box or a water pipe.
Because I can see you've got a meter box in the top right-hand corner of this image.
Yep.
So you put the meter box in. I can't see what the zip circle is at the very front. Can't read that.
Yeah, so that's a water pipe, I think, out the front, and gas meter box, power pole, and then hot water system back here.
Okay, so yeah, I was just wondering whether you have to do ceiling plans basically as the architectural term.
Yeah, you could certainly do it, but I guess guesstimating where exactly in the roof it is, yeah, it may just be a bit difficult on the day. And bear in mind, trying to do that on the day and mapping it out gets a bit difficult. Do you want to try and complete it in a timely manner? So
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, so always ask for a floor plan. Just makes it so much easier. Okay, now the next one. So audits and, do we call it audits or assessments? I like assessments better than audits. I don't like the word audit because just my previous career, just audit meant regulators, risk managers. So for me, it's assessments. Jeanette, I'm not sure. Do you?
I use assessment.
Yeah. Okay. Diane, do you call it audits or?
I use assessment.
Assessments. Okay. So there we go. We've got 3 building bulbs just calling it assessments. So yeah, I think that's the end of that. Yeah. So I've done 2 YouTube videos quickly, right? The MS Word report in 10 minutes. So it just goes through everything that we've covered today. May not go into some of the details around fixed width in tables and those things. I could do another video of that quite easily. And then I did a Mendeley, how to use Mendeley quickly as well. So hopefully that would help with your experience, gaining that experience and improving it. That's it. Sorry it's taken so long. It's a lot of trouble, problematic issues.
Thank you so much for that, Senri. I really enjoyed it.